In the dim light of post-war America, a new kind of machine began to hum quietly beneath the roar of factories and the rhythm of progress. It was not powered by oil or steam, nor measured in horsepower, but driven by something softer, invisible, endlessly renewable: human curiosity. While industry built highways and missiles, another factory was forming in silence, learning to mass-produce attention. It discovered that what people sought in secret could become the engine of an entire economy. The desire to watch, to feel, to escape became the first spark of a system that would outgrow its shadows and shape the visible world above it. By the mid-1950s, the nation's prosperity gleamed on the surface. Televisions in every living room, magazines stacked on suburban coffee tables, a golden promise that comfort was progress. Yet beneath that glow, a parallel market was learning how to monetize silence. Photographs and film reels passed through discrete channels. Envelopes crossed states with no return address. Every moral restriction became an engineering challenge. To protect anonymity, distributors invented codes, subscriptions, and payment methods that concealed the buyer's name while keeping the revenue flowing. Out of shame came innovation. When videotape arrived 2 decades later, the contest between Betamax and VHS was not settled in boardrooms but in bedrooms. The demand for private entertainment tipped the balance toward the cheaper, longer-playing format, and in that quiet consumer rebellion, the blueprint of modern media was drawn. Retailers adapted, electronics companies followed, and soon the architecture of home entertainment revolved around the principle of personal choice. Technology born in secrecy became the foundation of mass comfort. The same hunger that once hid behind curtains was now driving corporate investment, distribution logistics, and global supply chains. The early experiments with secure billing, private shipping, and coded marketing taught America how to automate discretion, how to make privacy profitable. In the process, capitalism learned something profound about itself. The most reliable fuel was not labor or land but desire. Factories had always produced goods, now they would produce experiences. The economy discovered that emotion could be quantified, that attention could be priced, and that the moral boundaries of a society could be turned into the borders of a market. Every prohibition invited invention, every taboo financed a new tool. The invisible industries of pleasure unknowingly funded the research that would birth Silicon Valley's infrastructure: compression algorithms, encryption, subscription billing, and digital distribution. What had begun as forbidden curiosity evolved into the mechanical study of human behavior. The projector became the prototype for the server. The ticket booth became the login screen. The machine was no longer made of gears and film, but of patterns and desire. In a dark room somewhere, the reel turned, and light scattered through smoke, drawing faces out of shadow. No one realized that inside that small hum lay the future pulse of a digital civilization. Each flicker of light became a pixel, each moment of secrecy a data point, each dollar spent a precedent for electronic trust. The country was building a second infrastructure, one made not of highways but of impulses. And as the century turned, that unseen architecture would merge with the visible one, powering industries that never needed to reveal their origin. The story of American innovation has always been told as the triumph of intellect, but beneath every patent and product lies a quiet confession. The drive to invent is born from the desire to feel. What began as curiosity became commerce, what was hidden became habitual, and what once whispered beneath morality became the language of the modern market. Long before the world spoke of data, algorithms, or artificial intelligence, America had already found its first digital engine, the human heart disguised as profit. When the internet arrived, curiosity found a new vessel. What once flickered on film now traveled as light through cables beneath the ocean, and every click became a confession. The quiet hunger that once moved envelopes and tapes was reborn in pixels and code. People believed they had gained freedom, the ability to see anything, anywhere, anonymously. But in truth, they had entered a system that recorded everything. The promise of the digital age was access. The price was exposure. By the late 1990s, America had moved from selling products to selling pathways, from manufacturing to mediating desire. The websites that rose in those early years were not just archives of content, they were laboratories of attention. To process payments without paper, engineers built encrypted gateways. To keep users returning, they invented recommendation engines that learned from repetition. In the background, small scripts began to watch and remember what people searched, how long they stayed, where their eyes lingered. Out of that observation, the modern internet was born. The quiet industries of secrecy had transformed into the foundations of surveillance. Every pixel seen, every second watched, became a measurable unit of behavior. Curiosity, once private, now fed an expanding database of human patterns. The code that once ensured anonymity, now ensured engagement. America had discovered a new resource more valuable than gold data. The old factory needed machines and men. The new one needed only users. Their attention-powered servers, their repetition refined algorithms, their impulses generated billions in advertising value. The economy had found a way to turn emotion into electricity. The most profitable business was no longer satisfying desire, but predicting it. What made this transformation truly revolutionary was not technology, it was psychology. The same principles that once sold fantasies now guided design, color, delay, rhythm, anticipation, each detail engineered to keep the human brain in a loop of expectation. Platforms learned to reward curiosity the way a slot machine rewards luck, irregularly, unpredictably, endlessly. The boundaries between pleasure and productivity dissolved. Work merged with entertainment merged with commerce, and all of it merged with data collection. The nation had created a behavioral mirror, one that reflected what people wanted even before they knew it themselves. The irony was that the internet, born as a dream of liberation, had become the most efficient feedback machine ever built. Every act of exploration became an input. The more people searched for freedom, the more predictable they became. This was the true innovation of the new economy. Not the website, not the platform, but the algorithm that learned the language of desire. The invisible industries of the 20th century had produced films and magazines. The invisible industries of the 21st produced metrics. Behind every banner ad and personalized suggestion lay a lineage of research tracing back to those first systems of anonymous pleasure. The same logic persisted: anticipate, adapt, and monetize what people can't stop returning to. By the time social networks appeared, the transformation was complete. The tools of intimacy had become the tools of influence. The feed replaced the screen, the profile replaced the diary, and the metric replaced emotion itself. The economy no longer needed to sell what people wanted. It could simply direct what they should want next. Every post, every view, every pause of the thumb was registered, ranked and recycled into prediction. In less than a generation, the engine of desire had merged with the architecture of democracy, commerce, and identity. The digital age was not built on information, it was built on repetition. And so the machine continued to hum, quieter than before, infinitely larger. The old factories that once shaped metal now shaped minds. The new economy no longer extracted resources from the earth but from emotion itself. What had begun as curiosity had evolved into a self-sustaining circuit of attention and reward, an empire of reflection where human behavior became the raw material of growth. Freedom had become the interface, control, the product, and in that subtle trade between curiosity and calculation, the next era of power was born. By the time America entered the third decade of the 21st century, the machine was complete. It no longer needed inventors or advertisers. It ran on instinct itself. Every desire, every fear, every idle moment had been mapped, tagged, and priced. The same system that once delivered entertainment now delivered ideology. Algorithms, invisible and tireless, began to whisper to every citizen what had started as a way to sell attention had evolved into a method of steering it. The behavioral empire was here, an empire that ruled not by law or army, but by prediction. It did not punish, it persuaded. It did not forbid, it suggested. And people obeyed not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Across the screens of phones and trading terminals, a new language emerged. Metrics as morality, engagement as truth. The digital economy measured not just what Americans bought, but what they believed. The value of a nation was no longer calculated in factories or fields, but in how long its citizens stayed online. The economy had absorbed emotion. Each like, each comment, each reaction was a microtransaction of the soul. Corporations that once manufactured goods now manufactured sentiment. Financial markets rose and fell with the pulse of collective attention. The distinction between commerce and consciousness dissolved, leaving only the hum of constant stimulation. But power, as always, hides behind convenience. The same systems that fed the public its news, its joy, its outrage, also fed Wall Street its numbers. Data brokers sold what used to belong to individuals, their preferences, their weaknesses, their moods to the highest bidder. Governments learned to buy attention as easily as companies bought ads. The map of human behavior became the new territory of the empire, and the flag planted on it was not made of cloth, but of code. America had discovered a way to export its greatest product, influence. What had once been a cultural industry was now a global operating system for emotion. And still the rhythm continued. Scroll, pause, react, repeat. A trillion small gestures every day, feeding the machine that never sleeps. The modern citizen became both participant and product, producer and consumer, free and owned. The wealth of the nation was stored not in vaults, but in habits. The currency was no longer gold or paper, but time itself. The more people gave, the richer the system became. Yet beneath the shimmer of connectivity, something faded. The quiet spaces where thought used to grow, the patience that once separated feeling from reaction. The market had perfected its greatest illusion, the appearance of choice within the architecture of control. And perhaps that is the final irony of the American experiment, not that desire built an economy, but that the economy learned to build desire. The machine we designed to serve us now studies us with divine precision, shaping our fears, our hopes, our dreams. It hums softly through every screen and every silence, feeding on attention, rewarded by emotion, guided by profit. The old engines of industry left smoke in the sky. This one leaves a mark on the mind. In the end, it may not be tyranny that ends freedom, but comfort that erases it. Because when the price of pleasure becomes obedience, the transaction is complete. The empire of behavior stands quietly victorious. If this story made you think, if it opened a window behind the noise of headlines, then lend your voice to ours. Like this video, share it with those who still believe curiosity is free, and subscribe to Financial Ripples so the next time power hides behind progress, you'll be here to see the next ripple unfold.